Hi, Senator Sanders. So my father's family left Soviet Russia in 1979, fleeing from some of the very same socialist policies that you seem eager to implement in this country. So my question is, how do you rectify your notion of democratic socialism with the failures of socialism in nearly every country that has tried it?
And do you think that Thank you for asking that question. Is it your assumption that I supported or believe in authoritarian communism that existed in the Soviet Union? I don't. I never have, and I opposed it. I believe in a vigorous democracy. But you have asked me the question about democratic socialism, fair question, and let me answer it. I happen to believe that in the United States, there is something fundamentally wrong when we have three families owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society, 160 million people. Something wrong when the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. Something very wrong when 49% of all new income today is going to the top 1%. And something is equally wrong when we have a corrupt political system made even worse by this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, which allows billionaires to spend unlimited sums of money to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. So answer number one to your question is a radical idea. Maybe not everybody agrees, but I happen to believe we should have a government that represents working families and not just the 1% and powerful corporations. All right, that's point number one. Point number two, what do I mean when I talk about democratic socialism? It certainly is not the authoritarian communism that existed in the Soviet Union and in other communist countries. This is what it means. It means that we cherish, among other things, our Bill of Rights. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt made this point. Chris, I don't know if you remember, you read about it, 1944, in a State of the Union address that never got a whole lot of attention. This is what he said, basically. It was a very profound speech toward the end of World War II. He said, we got a great Constitution. Bill of Rights protects your freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and all that stuff, great. But you know what it doesn't protect? It doesn't protect and guarantee you economic rights. So, Samantha, let me be very honest with you. I believe that in a democratic, civilized society, health care is a human right. Government should make that happen. I believe that every young person in this country, regardless of his or her income, has the right to get all of the education they need. That's why I have fought hard, with some success, to move toward making public colleges and universities tuition-free and very substantially reduce student debt. And I believe that there is something wrong in America today when you got millions of families paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes to put a roof over their heads. And that millions of working class families, young parents, cannot find quality and affordable childcare. So I happen to believe that we have to address the issue of grotesque levels of income and wealth inequality, very, very rich getting much richer, middle class struggling, 40 million people living in poverty. And what democratic socialism means to me is we expand Medicare, we provide educational opportunity to all Americans, we rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. In other words, government serves the needs of all people rather than just wealthy campaign contributors. That's what that means to me.
You were asked earlier on, as a quick follow on this, what do you feel differently about now? I was reviewing what CNN's K-File had come up, taking a look at your evolution in politics. You used to argue that you should have government control of the means of capitalism, energy companies, factories,
when did I say
banks.
That?
In the 70s.
Okay, right.
No, but hold on.
What did you say in the 70s?
Hold on. A gaga Google.
That's right. All right.
What I'm saying is that you've changed.
Well, wait a minute. First thought, he hears me criticizing media all the time, and he gets nervous about it, right?
One of many things that makes me nervous.
All right. Is I was the mayor of a city for 8 years. Did I nationalize any of the industry in the city of Burlington, Vermont? I don't think so. Congressman for 16 years. Look, I said what I said, and that is I want to live in a nation in which all people in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world can have a decent standard of living. I'm not talking about everybody owning a big fancy house or a Cadillac or anything like that, but I think we can do what other nations in the world are already doing. I mean, the ideas that I'm advocating for you tonight, they're not so radical. Healthcare, healthcare as a right exists in virtually every other major country on earth. How much, anyone here know how much it costs to go to college in Germany? Anyone know? Yeah, it's free. I once was giving a speech, Chris, and I said that in Finland, college is free, and some guy jumped up and said, I'm from Finland, you're wrong, it's not free. I said, oh? He said, yeah, they pay us to go to college. All right, so these ideas about guaranteeing economic rights to working people, rather than seeing in New Hampshire and in Vermont and all over this country, people working 2 or 3 jobs, for $8 or $9 an hour, living under great stress, not having time for their kids, marriages dissolving as a result. Yeah, that's what I believe. I believe in a nation in which we guarantee fundamental economic rights, basic necessities of life to all of our people.
Raising taxes on the wealthy. Because people with a college education tend to have higher incomes, could this plan eventually hurt us?
Kyle, I don't think so. I mean, I think what our campaign is about is justice. It's a fight for justice. Economic justice, social justice, racial justice, environmental justice. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself whether it is acceptable that corporations like Amazon and Netflix and General Motors pay nothing in federal taxes, whether Trump's tax proposal gives massive tax breaks to families like the Koch brothers, one of the wealthiest families in America. So I think what we need is a fair and progressive tax system in order to raise the revenue that we need to help working families in this country and deal with the very serious problem of income and wealth inequality. So I have no apologies to make in saying that we are going to do our best to end the tax havens that exist in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and other countries where corporations and wealthy individuals around the world, not just from America, stash trillions of dollars. And then back home in the United States or in other countries, they're cutting back on education, they're cutting back on health care. That does not make a lot of sense to me. So, I do believe that very wealthy people and large profitable corporations should begin to pay their fair share of taxes. And I got to tell you that I think Trump's tax proposal, which gave $1.5 trillion in tax breaks over a 10-year period to the top 1% and large profitable corporations, driving up the deficit, was an absolute outrage. If elected president, I will rescind those tax breaks.
Senator Warren, obviously on earlier tonight, arguably goes a little bit further than you because she has a piece in her plan that is about debt forgiveness. If your family makes $100,000 or less, you can forgive up to $50,000 in student loans, sliding scale. Do you support her plan?
I haven't seen. I really haven't studied it, but I think Elizabeth and I end up agreeing on a whole lot of issues, and what she understands and what I understand is we don't punish people for the crime of getting a higher education. So, bottom line is, look, I have talked to so many young people. I just had some young people from Howard University who are teachers in my office a couple of weeks ago. This fellow now who's working as a teacher, getting, I think, his master's degree, is $182,000 in debt. How do you pay that off on a teacher's salary? I talked to a young woman in Burlington, Vermont, a young doctor, $300,000 in debt. So we've got to do, as I said earlier, 2 things. And I'm proud. I raised this issue, you remember, 4 years ago, Chris. And everybody 4 years ago goes, oh, Bernie's a little bit crazy, talking about making public colleges and universities tuition free. Ain't such a crazy idea today. It's an idea that's taking hold all across this country. And the idea talked about 4 years ago. And we could argue about the best way to do it. And I don't think Elizabeth and I have terribly many differences on this. But the bottom line is people should not have to forego getting married, forego having kids, forego having a car for the crime of getting a college education. And we will deal with that in a very, very significant way. And then people say, well, how are you going to pay for that? Well, gets back to the question that the young man asked a moment ago. Yeah. When Wall Street was bailed out by Congress to the tune of at least $1 trillion, don't tell me we don't have enough money in this country to substantially reduce student debt.
Another question. Amisha Kumbit.